وجهه وفضله وثوابه سبحانه. اللهم افتح علينا بحكمتك وانشر علينا برحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. يا عليم علمنا من علمك ما ترضى به عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما تعلمه منا. يا حليم خلقنا بخلق الحلم وحققنا بحقائق العلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So this is our fifth and unfortunately final, maybe fortunately, final lesson of Ajaib al-Qalb, the marvels of the heart. And we have quite a bit to cover, and I'll try to do my best. Maybe you can give me some extra time, and I can give you some extra time for questions. We'll try to do that. Would that be okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let's review a little bit. So in the last lesson, the fourth, we talked about the fact that your heart is constantly open to influences, and you're not the only one. And your psyche is not the only one. There are internal influences that well up within you, and there are internal influences that come down from the best part of you, and they're also external. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And therefore, in our hearts, there is a battlefield that is always having skirmishes. Even at the end of our lives, and even after you have attained the greatest attainment spiritually, that never ends. We emphasize that we live in an enchanted world, that we believe, based on prophetic revelation, that there is much, much more to reality than what I see with this eye, and hear with this ear, and taste with this tongue, and smell with this nose, and touch with my fingers. There's much more than that. And we are obliged to believe in something called the jinn, the spirits, who are very much like us, although they take many forms. They can look like mice, they can look like frightening things, they can look like human beings, just like you. And some of them are very good, some of them are very bad, and some of them are in between. Almost, I think all human beings believe in them, except for the moderns, who are haunted by them. And we talked about the fact that in the development of Western thought, especially in the 18th century and 19th century, the world was disenchanted. And the Germans call that Entzauberung, the removing of the magic. But all it means is that the cognitive frames were altered, and blocks were put between the mirror. That's all it means, because they're still there. And we talked about that a lot, so we don't want to talk about it more. I would actually, but we don't have time, so we have to hurry. But we live in an enchanted world. There are jinn, and there are angels, and there are external influences. So we have to believe in that, and it's true. It's true. Most of us never see that, although someday you will. Someday you will see this. Some people see it here. My own daughter is a person like that. She sees these things. She sees them amazingly. They communicate to her. And you have people like that. But all of us will see them someday. So this battle that goes on in our heart, over our heart, to win our heart, this never ends until the day we die. That battle, there's going to be a skirmish. Skirmishes are renewed, and this will not end until that last breath. And may it be beautiful. And may there be no skirmishes at that time. At that time, may we have won the battle. and we give ourselves over completely to God. Therefore, mujahada of the self, this never ends. Even for the greatest of the shaykhat, even for the greatest of the mashayikh, it never ends. You have to keep vigilant to the last moment. And he tries to conquer the heart. Angels try to conquer the heart. We, of course, want God and the angels to take our hearts. We talked about then the topic of involuntary suggestions, which we call in Arabic al-khawatir. And this is extremely important because all of our actions inwardly and outwardly as human beings are generated by khawatir, by involuntary suggestions. And these come from many different sources, again, internal and external. But you can divide them into good and bad. And even if you don't know, did this suggestion come from a demon? Did it come from my psyche? Did it come from something else? Maybe I overate, and had indigestion. But you can just see, is it good, is it bad? But especially, is it good leading to good? Because the demonic will also suggest you something good that leads to something not good. So you've got to check it out. And then you can know, well, this is a good khatir, so I'll follow it. This one's not, so I won't. Where did it actually come from? Well, I don't know. Although you can learn. There are ways you can learn. The more attention you pay to your heart, the more you will learn about it. The good khawatir, as we said, they come from God directly. Those you can't disobey. But they're not very many, usually. And they come from the angels. And they come from the good heart. And they come from the sound intellect. And they come from the spirit, the ruh. But all of these we could call angelic. We can put them all under that heading. And then we have the bad khawatir. And these are the ones that come from the psyche. And if you believe in things like the id or, the unconscious, they come, they come from, the psyche. They come from the animal dimension of the soul. They come from the bestial dimension of our soul. They come from the demonic. We talked about the idols. The idol of the pig, the idol of the dog, the idol of the demon. And, these are always bad, even if they are good, because they'll lead to something bad. So they're tricks. And you want to be very careful about that. And then we said that in order to keep the demonic out of our hearts, we have to make sure, that we don't leave any fodder around for Satan. And Satan, if your heart has no fodder for him, he's going to leave you alone to some extent. Whereas if we have fodder in our heart, he's going to feast. He's going to gloat. He's going to satiate himself. And he has a good friend in here who is the ego. They work together. So the father of Satan is anger out of control, appetite out of control, hawa, deluded and deluding passion, passions in command. And then we began to speak about the fact that the empty heart has in it no fodder. That's why it's a hard one for Satan to reach, and it's one where he doesn't want to stay for long. There's nothing to eat. So we want to have the empty heart. The empty heart is the one, as you know, that has no attachment in it to other than God, that knows God in His oneness, and that loves God immensely, overwhelmed with the love of God. That heart is the heart that produces amazing things and becomes a repository, a reservoir, a receptor of incredible knowledge. And most of the awliya don't talk about what they know. Most of the awliya are hidden, the saints. And they have so much knowledge, and this is what the Prophet says. Most of them are hidden. When they attend, nobody points at them and says, oh, this is so-and-so. When they're gone, nobody asks about them. They're not missed. But their hearts are the radiant lamps of guidance. They will come out safely from every impossible catastrophe. They'll find, that's why you want to love them and you want to be close to them. We are in right now Muslim. Look at what's happening to us. The awliya can take you. They'll come out. And if we follow them, we'll come out too. We need to love them. We need to trust them. Then we began to talk about the 14 portals, big doors of Satan. So let's try to lock them shut. We could also call them the 14 foulest fathers. 14 abominable fathers. Fodder is animal food, right? And so this is, okay, let's just begin again. Number one, unbridled anger. That's number one. That's the one that throws me to the ground. How many times? Most of us have issues with anger, unfortunately, especially before my beard became this color. I had as much trouble with that as any of you. So anger is a tough one, and it makes you a fool. And you know that, but it'll make you a fool tomorrow too. So unbridled anger. Unbridled appetite. You do whatever you want to do. You go wherever you want to go. And you don't think about the consequences, and you ruin your life. The path to hell is paved with, not good intentions, when I say that. It's paved with shahawat, with appetites. Do this, do that. You can do that. Do tawbah, Ramadan's coming. You do tawbah when Ramadan comes. You might not be able to. And then number three, hasad. Hasad. Envy. Invidious hatred. That burns us alive. And that is Satan's primary quality. He is the hasud of the hasuds. Then we talked about hirs. Hirs, which I'm going to say is uncontrolled desire to get and to possess things. It's covetousness. You know, like, I've got to have this. I've got to have that. And I fill my life with all kinds of things I covet. You know, so fill your house with beauty. Your houses are beautiful. This house is beautiful. But there's no hirs. There's no hirs. And then overeating, satiation, oversatiation, even from the halal. So we have to be careful about how we eat, even when your food is so delicious. And what we drink, even though what you drink is so delicious. And again, this is where Ramadan is a tremendous blessing. And can we try not to overeat? Because usually our wonderful ummah, we eat twice as much in Ramadan as we do any other time of the year. And our sugar intake goes up sometimes 3 times as much. God gave you this incredible avenue to health, and we don't necessarily take it that way. So we don't want to overeat. We want to eat well. And this is where also maybe the French can teach us a lesson, because the French, to my limited knowledge of the French, they tend not to overeat. They eat very deliciously, but a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Right? That's what I know about them. You know more about them than I. But the French, they eat good food, delicious food, and they are, joie de vivre. They know how to live, but they don't usually overeat. They don't, in my limited knowledge. And we don't want to do that either. And then your food's more delicious. Your food's much more delicious. Unbalanced love of adornment, tazyin, and again, we want to look good and we want to be beautiful. And in traditional Islamic society, everything was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. Even the Bedouins were beautiful. Everything was artistic. But we don't want to be captivated by that. We don't want to be imprisoned by that. And that happens to people. It's like, we become, the woman sits in front of her mirror and like, you look beautiful. And then she'll spend another hour, maybe more. And then she's got to get out of the mirror again and check it again. Maybe this is overdoing it. It might be. And we don't want to do that. Men can do things like that in their own way as well. Tama. I don't really know a good English word for this. He doesn't quite get it though, because tama always involves conniving to get things and to get friends and people that can advance you and get you the things you want. So always we have tama fi kada. Tama fi kada. And often it's not of things that we possess, but things we want to possess. So as we said last time, the letters of tama are all hollow. Ta, mim, ayn. They all are hollow. It's very hollow. And so it's also one of the portals of Satan. Now, another one which we didn't take last time is reckless haste. Recklessness. Hastiness that's reckless. Not paying attention. Not taking time to do things right. Slow down. Think about what you're doing. Think about the consequences. At-ta'anni. At-ta'anni is one of the best aspects of good character. So fit-ta'anni as-salam. And haste is not that way. We need to be careful. We need to think things out. Recklessness in speech. How many times has that destroyed us? And then even Imam al-Ghazali mentions coming into possession of wealth and money, even if you didn't seek it. So this is also a portal. We want to succeed if we have money or capital. We want to protect it and we want to increase it. Hifdhul mal min maqasid al-sharia. The preservation of wealth, the cultivation of wealth, the acquisition of wealth is one of the maqasid. But sometimes when people get that wealth, it changes them forever. And this is especially true of the nouveau riche, of the people that had nothing and got everything, and usually they don't know what to do with it. It intoxicates them, it sweeps them off their feet. And Imam al-Ghazali tells us the story of a man who's very poor, very content, very happy, and then he discovers 10 pieces of gold. And it's his, he found it, nobody else will take it, but it totally ruins his life. Because now I've got to buy this, now I've got to buy that, then I've got to get this. What if this happens? What if that is taken away? And sometimes the possession of wealth can destroy us totally. And again, you don't want it to be in your heart. Maybe you know or remember the story of Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was probably the wealthiest American in the 1920s, 1930s, until he died, maybe in the 70s, I don't remember. The TWA Airlines was his. We don't have it anymore, but that was a big airline. He had a whole big control over Hollywood. When the American Depression came, he flew above it. Playboy, did whatever he wanted. He was really rich. And yet, then he goes insane. He can only live in penthouses, has to have the, windows covered with thick drapes. He's afraid of everything. He's paranoid. In the end, they found him. He disappeared, and he showed up in the American desert in Arizona or New Mexico. His fingernails were like this long. His hair was long. In fact, he died there. And he signed his wealth over to a gasoline operation. So it's something that got into newspapers. And his heirs, of course, didn't accept that. But what was the benefit of his wealth? Again, it opened up for him portals of Satan that destroyed him absolutely and made him a shadow of a human being. Stinginess, forgetful, especially fear of poverty, fear of provision. Okay, again, the wealthy often don't have that. They may have fear of poverty, they may have fear of losing it, but they don't usually worry about where they're going to eat tomorrow. But fear of poverty, fear of provision. This is very, very harmful. And this is something we don't want to have. God is your provider. God is your provider. And if you've ever lived in a state of poverty, one of the amazing things is that now you don't have anything. You have nothing but debts. And you will eat tonight. And you will eat tomorrow. And you may miss a meal. But you will eat. And it's actually a wonder that your provision does come to you, even though you don't have an idea of where it's going to come from. Another portal of Satan is ta'assub. It is things like fanaticism. We can add to that prejudice, sectarianism, racism. None of these are good. Ta'assub is never good. We must be for everyone. And we've got to look for the truth wherever we find it. Another one, number 12, is what I've translated as not being able to let go. And Imam al-Ghazali means by that becoming engrossed in our disputes, engrossed in our arguments and contentions with groups, with friends, with ourselves. And you know how this is. We do it ourselves sometimes, especially when we're younger. But you can't let the argument stop. It just goes on and on and on. And even if people tell you, just let it go, you can't do that. Okay, so Satan's going to be there with you for sure. He will take advantage of that to the fullest. Now, another one that Imam al-Ghazali mentions is confusion that comes from lacking a clear understanding of the truth. And this comes from things like fallacies, shubuhat. Shubuhat are one of the sources of the sickness of the heart. Shahawat, out of control, are too, including anger. But fallacies open up the door for Satan. And then, especially when those fallacies or that ignorance pertains to things like God, his attributes, his essence, and so forth, there we need to find a solid foundation. And there, to speak confusedly is a disaster. Don't say anything or say it correctly. And again, find a teacher and get the foundation solid. And Imam al-Ghazali ends with having a bad opinion of God. Su' al-dhanni billah. Bad opinion of God means to have a bad opinion of creation, a bad opinion of Muslims, a bad opinion of everyone else. You want to be healthy, and may you be healthy. Have a good opinion of God. Having husnul dhanni billah is the foundation of good physical health and mental health. Bad opinion of God is the foundation of sickness, mental sickness, physical sickness. And bad opinion of God is not trusting in God. And also not accepting what we live in, that this world is under the control of God. Are we in Ghabra Muslima? Indeed. One of the worst we have ever been in. Okay, but did God will that to be? Yes. Did we earn it? Yes. You have to be honest. Was it done with wisdom? Maybe you don't understand, but it was. Will it lead to good? It will someday. That's having a good opinion of God. Sometimes it's extremely difficult. What about a mother who loses her baby? What about a person who loses his best friend? Many people can never recover from that, you know. But have a good opinion of God. Trust in God. Have a good opinion of God. And have a good opinion of creation. That is other people. Don't think ill of them. We say in our tradition, if you will look for good, you'll find it to no end of good. There's so much good out there, you would never find it all. And if you look for evil, you'll find it to no limit of evil. So look for the good, you'll find it. And creation is in good hands. Creation is in good hands. One of the problems with Muslims today, in my opinion, especially the people who are blowing up things and destroying things and killing innocent people and violating the Sharia to the utmost in the name of God, is that they have a bad opinion of God. They don't understand that God is in control. Why don't you try to have al-fahmi anillah? Understand the time we live in, understand the situation we live in, and try to live with it and make it better. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, you're going to make it worse by doing the things that you do. So these are the portals. These are the fathers. And Imam al-Ghazali then tells us that you want to stop up these portals. You want to close them down as much as you can. Still influences will come in, but they won't be bawadas, they won't be portals. And you know, this is by things like salamat al-sadr, purification of the self, getting a sound heart, getting rid of these traits, very obvious, having certainty about God, yaqeen, so you can trust in Him, have a good opinion of Him, taqwa, bir and taqwa, lead a righteous life, a good life, do dhikr. And again, dhikr should be done, you know, sincerely and honestly and under direction, actually. Prayer and fasting with salamat al-sadr. Prayer and fasting with a sound heart. The Quran and prayer are the highest dhikr that there are. Silencing the tongue. When do you speak? Of course, we speak all the time, right? But what I've got to train myself to do is what I want to say true? Is it right? Because if it's not, don't say it. Is what I want to say going to be harmful even though it's true? Because I don't want to say it. Backbiting is always true. And is what I want to say true? It won't cause harm, but it will actually cause benefit. In other words, they will listen to it, because they probably won't. So if they don't, then it's better just to be quiet. And this is controlling the tongue. And controlling the tongue is so essential to controlling the self and developing the self and overcoming Satan. And then there's something also which is, we call silencing the heart. And inshallah, maybe we can talk about that as we go further down the line in the lesson today. But you need to silence your heart. Silence your heart means to quiet the anxieties, the fears, the questions, the doubts, all this chatter that goes on in our heart. Okay? And you know how you can do that? You can tell your heart to be quiet. Do it. You don't have to do it out loud. You can do it out loud if you want. You just say, be quiet, my heart. Be quiet. And it is created to obey you. And it will obey you. It will be startled. And after a while, you can control it. Be quiet. Be silent. Stop whispering to me. Stop talking. Stop telling me about your fears. And what did he say? Why did they do that? Why did this happen? What if this happens? What if we don't do this? That's all chatter of the heart. It's a type of khawatir. But be quiet. When your heart is silenced, you will only speak wisdom. And if you can silence your heart and silence your tongue, then you have access to this world of truth and knowledge that cannot be expressed in words. So we want to silence our tongues. And again, it doesn't mean you can never talk, but try to speak when what you say is true. You know it's true. Because many times we don't, right? How many times do I relate reports I hear from other people that I didn't actually check out, and it turns out to be false? That's not good. Why didn't you just wait? Why didn't you ask somebody else? Okay, so is it true? Will it cause harm? No. Okay, will it cause benefit? Yes. Okay, now you can talk, but talk wisely. And again, how do we do that? They used to say to us that the English think twice before they speak. Yes. You and I should think 3 times. Is it true? Will it cause harm? Will it cause benefit? Now, how can I do that? And here, this is training. Usually it takes years. But again, if we take, the metaphor of sports, and maybe we can take the metaphor of basketball, if you want to shoot a particular shot, you may have to shoot it thousands of times every day. If you want to do a particular play, you may have to run it time after time after time. You'll be sick of it. Okay? But then, by this training, it becomes something that's natural, as if it were spontaneous, even though it's not. And this is why you see in the great professional athletes that they go into zones, what they call zones. And they're not thinking anymore. They're just doing it. There was a movie called The Last Samurai. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's good and bad. The part I dislike about it is that this man was massacring the First Nations, the people of my land, the first people of our land. And then he's going to make up for that by helping the samurais. No, you can't make up for this. Why didn't we just change that? But, in any case, in this man is an American. He becomes a samurai to help the samurai. But in the end of the movie, he's been trained, but then he goes into the zone. That's that last part of it, when he's not thinking anymore. And then he can do all these marvelous things. So that's, I think, a good metaphor for us. Because train yourself. You're going to make 1,000 mistakes. I make 1,000 mistakes, times 10. But then after a while, maybe we get into the zone where we begin to speak with thought, and we have silence, with thought, silence that pollinates the intellect. Another thing is an-nushu lil khalq. Give good advice to creation. Make it your purpose in life to try to figure out what people need and to give them what they need. Most of us, when people ask us for advice, we try to take advantage of them. That, okay, so you want advice. Well, I'm thinking to myself, what can you do for me? I could use you for this. I could use you for that. Right? A lot of people, that's what they do. Their advice is insincere, or it's even jealous. You want to give, like, what does this person need? And give it to them. And the more you do that, the more you learn about people's needs. And when I was in Cairo the first time, which was 1973, the Ramadan War, I was there for the Ramadan War, which was one of the most amazing things I ever saw in my life. Most of you weren't probably born by that time. But the Arabs were crushed in those days under the myth of the invincible Superman. You can't do anything with him. He's got you beat over and over again. And in the Ramadan War, that myth was broken. And it would never be restored again. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And the Egyptians came to life. I have never seen anything like that in my life. It's like the way they were before. It's like every one of them is wearing an anvil around his neck. A big, heavy lead object. And when they crossed the Bar-Lev line, it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So, when I was there in Egypt, I had a friend of mine I was in Zamalek on the island, and he was coming from Hussein, from the mosque of Imam Hussein. And he wanted to visit me. And I think also he lived like in Giza or something like that. So he lived in the West, and he was pickpocketed. That was basically the only crime in Egypt at that time, was the pickpocket. And they told me, beware of pickpockets. So I did. I remember a pickpocket once tried to get in my pocket. You made a mistake. And I got him. He was so terrified. I actually let him go. But, I saw, wow, I got him. And he was so frightened. He was really frightened. That was the only time it happened. Nobody picked my pocket. But he got his picked. So he has no money. And so this Egyptian matron, she walks up to him and she tells him, words to the effect that, my son, you don't have any money, do you? And you can't get bus fare. And she gave him bus fare. Okay, so how did she know that? Well, with mother, first of all. But this is a person who cares about other people. And no doubt, she gives good advice to other people. So God opens up to her a mirror by which she sees the needs of people and she can meet them. So you want to do that too. And nushu lil khalq, sincere advice to people. Okay, so now with this, we come to the generation of action. Okay, and as we said before, the heart is the springboard of all action. That's why you've got to pay attention to it. Everything you do is coming out of this metaphysical heart. Everything you do. So you want to know how that works, and you want to wake up to it. Everything we do that's moral, everything we do that's immoral, everything that we do that's ethical, everything that we do that's unethical is coming from here. And that's why we also say that the actions of the heart are the biggest ones of all. Your action is coming from your heart, but you want to get control of your action in your heart. You want to watch the birth of every one of those babies. Every one of those actions, you want to watch its genesis. And you want to control it. And you want to be able to say yes or no. This is going to be or it's not going to be. And we want to be thoughtful about this. Most people don't know anything about it. They don't pay anything attention to it. They're sort of like sleepwalkers. They're walking in their sleep. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't have self-consciousness. Consciousness is one of the greatest gifts of all, especially self-consciousness, that you know yourself, that you can look into yourself, that you can watch yourself. That is one of the greatest gifts of all. So, in the genesis of actions, there are 4 stages that take place in this heart. The first one is the incoming of the chata, the incoming of the voluntary suggestion. And you know already that these suggestions come from all over the place. They come from inside of you, they come from outside of you. They're good and they're bad. But that's what makes the action happen when it's voluntary. It begins with suggestion. Okay? And here, there is no morality or immorality. Okay? You're not going to be held responsible for on the day of judgment. So you may have a horrific dream of the ugliest thing thinkable. And you say, God, I'm such a horrible person. You may have thoughts that are so ugly, they shock you. Okay, well, that is not from you. That is from something else bad. It could be the demon. It could be the psyche. It could be some other things, like the pig, or the dog in us. But it's not your fault. And you're not a bad person. You're just a human being, exposed like all human beings to this drama. Okay? So the chata comes in. Then you have the natural inclination or disinclination to that suggestion. Okay? Like you like it or you don't like it. You pay attention to it or you don't. Okay? But you begin to respond to it. Okay? And this is very important because this is a key to understanding your character, your chuluk. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes because I have a character and so do you. Chuluk is not necessarily good. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The chuluk is what is easy for you to do. So for some people, it's easy for them to frown and difficult for them to smile. For some people, it's easy for them to smile and difficult to frown. That's chuluk. Some people, it's easy for them to give and easy for them not to give. And some people, it's easy for them not to give and it's difficult for them to give. That's chuluk. Whether it's hasan or sayyi, that's another thing. But the chuluk, your character, is what comes natural for you. And so your response to the suggestion, it tells me about me. Like you actually like that thing, but it's not good. So you've got to work on something in your character. You actually like that thing and it is good, so praise God. You actually don't like that thing and it's good, so you have to work on your character. Okay, so the response is very important, but the response is neither moral nor immoral. God does not take you to account for that. You know, so you saw something bad and you paid more attention to it than you should have. Well, work on your character. But you're not responsible for that. You're not mukallaf, because this is still involuntary. And then number 3, we could call this your evaluation of it and your decision about it. Okay, so should I do this? Is it good? Do I want to do this? And I'm going to do it, but it's not good. Okay, so still I'm just thinking over, like, okay, so what am I going to do about this? Am I going to do it? Is it good? And I should do it. Am I going to do it? It's not good, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is it bad? And I'm not going to do it. Is it bad? But I'm going to do it. This is all the process of judgment, of judging that inclination to that suggestion. And this comes very close to the point of decision. Decision, okay? But not yet. We haven't gotten there. Okay, it's like, I really want to do this. Okay, but I shouldn't. Okay, I really don't want to do this, but I should. Okay, so this is the 3rd stage. And this is still involuntary. So it's still not a moral or immoral issue. God will not take you to task for that. This is still your sir. This is still your secret. Okay? But in every step, you have approached voluntary action. Now, the next step is decision. The next step is also intention or intent. I'm going to do it, or I'm not going to do it. Okay? So now this is action. This you may be taken to task for. Even though if you have a bad intention and you don't act on it, God will reward you. That's an act of mercy. But this is still a voluntary act. And this is where the action comes from. Now, one of the most important things we want to do is to become yani ahlun niyat. We want to be the people of intentions. Ahlun niyat. Because most of us, including myself, we're actually always like sleepwalkers. Especially, God forbid, when it comes to bad things. We just wander into them. I know I'm not supposed to do it. I know I'm not. Oh, I'm doing it. You know, the devil made me do it. Right? No, you're responsible for that. And we look at things like pornography, which is a major fitna in this time for men and women. And it's like, you shouldn't push the button, you shouldn't push the button, and then somehow you just do it, and there it is, and oh my God. Okay? Don't do that. You've got to wake up. You've got to take control. You must not sleepwalk. And usually bad things, we drift into them. And that's why also out of this you get psychosis. Because the psychotic, psychotic murderer, people that are habitual liars and things like that, they always drift into it. They rarely actually make the decision. Criminals sometimes do that, like killing, he's got our drugs, but most of these other people, they drift into it. It takes them by surprise, but they want to be taken by surprise. So you don't want to do that. Wake up. You've got to wake up. And this is why you want to learn to follow this process. Okay, where did that khatir come from? You're thinking about it right now. You can see whether it's good or bad. How did it get in? That's really hard. That's really hard. We find ourselves thinking about things. How did that start? Okay, but you pay attention to it and you will ferret it out. You will be able to trace it to the source. Where's the door? Where's the portal? Is it hirs? Is it envy? Is it fear of poverty? Is it confusion? What is it? But there's something going on here. So learn to know yourself. Ferret it out. Where did the rat come from? He's back in my apartment. I thought I blocked all the holes. Okay, so where's the hole? Okay, and then how do you incline toward that act? You know it's good, but you don't want to do it. You know it's bad, but you want to do it. Or it's good and you want to do it. That's great. But pay attention to that. And be active in that process. And evaluate it honestly. And then make the decision. And then do that consciously. And then do it. Then you become min ahl al-niyat. And they are the people of God. They are the greatest of all people. They are conscious of what they are doing in everything they do. And here again, we can use the metaphor of training in sports. Because they have done this so many times that they become masters of it. And everything they do is an intention. And then also, to get that intention, you've got to do it. Okay, I know I don't want to do this thing because it's hard. Like, inshallah, when we go back to Chicago, our little group there, we're going to begin to feed poor people once a week in a particular part of Chicago where they actually are starving, where they're walking on the street with no food, on the south side. Okay, may we be successful in that. So that's not easy to do. That's difficult to do, and it takes money to do. And how are we going to continue to do it? And we want to do it in our own little group. We have other beautiful people who we work with, but let's see if we can do this as our own baby. Okay, that's great. So it's hard, it's difficult, but it's good, and we're going to do it. Okay, so this is the way you want to be. Like, should you get up to pray at night? Okay, well, maybe you should. So if you make that intention, then do it. Do it. Hold yourself to the intention. Don't push yourself too hard. But you become an ahliyah, the people of conscious decisions, the people of clear intentions. And you always know that you should have a good intention. But the thing is that you want to watch those intentions generate in your heart, and you want to take control of them with your aql. Okay, like, should I go visit so-and-so? He's in the hospital, but I've got 1,000 things to do. I can't drive across town and go see him. No, you can. And you're going to do it, whether you like it or not. Okay, and when you begin to work like that, and you set priorities, not according to your hawa, but according to what is right, that is victory. That is victory. Now, we want to talk about khuluq. And actually, this is chapter 22, disciplining the soul. And so we've actually finished chapter 21. Of course, we didn't go into detail. We took it really in summary. But now we want to come into disciplining the soul. And here, Imam al-Ghazali begins to talk about khuluq. And khuluq is very important. Of course, we talk about khuluq in order to talk about husnul khuluq. And he gives us some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Let's just look at some of these. Qila ya Rasulullah mad-deen. Qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, husnul khuluq. Husnul khuluq is the deen. Husnul khuluq is the deen. As-sidqu ma'allah. وحسن الخلق مع الخلق. وقيل يا رسول الله ما الشؤم? ما الشؤم? What is the ominous thing, the real omen, the thing that we should take as a bad omen? قال سوء الخلق. Bad character. Bad character is bad news. But you can make it well. You can make it good. And then also they said, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم من سعادة المرء حسن الخلق. Part of the felicity of a person is good character. Nothing makes you happier than when you are following good character. وقال اليمن حسن الخلق. اليمن حسن الخلق. The most hopeful of things, al-yuman, is good character. So may we have that. He said, as you all know, God said of him, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. That's who he was. Great character, not just good character. Verily you have the best of all character, the greatest of all character. And then what did he say? وَإِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect good character. You know, the nobilities of character. So character is so important. The Prophet was asked, أَيُّ الْأَعْمَالِ أَفْضَلُ؟ قَالَ حُسْنُ الْخُلُقِ. What are the best of all actions? And he said, good character. They asked, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَيْسَرِ الْعِبَادَاتِ وَأَهْوَنِهَا عَلَى الْبَدَنِ. I hope I'm not making it wrong. But he says, shall I not tell you about the easiest form of worship and the most compatible of those to the body? The easiest of those for the body also. And it is as-samtu wa husnul khuluq. Silence and good character. Again, silence and ilm. Silence from aql. The silence when, like, why should I speak now when I don't know what to say, don't know what's right or wrong, and then even if I do, it might be more harmful than beneficial, and even if it's not going to be harmful, they're not going to listen. So let's just keep this a secret for right now. We'll pray for them, we'll say other things, we'll bring them closer to us. That's wisdom. So character is really, really important. And what is character? So Imam al-Ghazali says that, and let's get the Arabic text here, since we're in Beirut. I should give you more of your own language. That's proper. But this is his definition. Al-khuluqu hay'atun fil nafsi rasikha. Al-khuluqu hay'atun fil nafsi rasikha. عنها تصدر الأفعال بسهولة ويسر من غير حاجة إلى فكر وروية. Okay. الخلق هيئة في النفس راسخة. هيئة راسخة في النفس. عنها تصدر الأفعال بسهولة ويسر من غير حاجة إلى فكر وروية. So what does that say in English? That character is a firmly established disposition of the soul from which actions are generated easily and without effort, without need of thought or deliberation. Should we do that one more time? Yes. So character, khuluq, is neither good or bad. Khuluq is a disposition, an inclination. And it is a firmly established, we could say firmly grounded. Let me just change that to grounded. Deeply planted, firmly grounded disposition of the soul from which actions are generated easily and effortlessly without need of thought or deliberation. Okay, and again, some of that's good, some of that's not good. So anger may be my character. It's easy for me to get angry. And I have to think about it. I don't have to deliberate. Okay, so that's character. Is it good? Probably not. I've got to deal with it. Being friendly, being unfriendly, smiling, not smiling. All of those usually are dispositions. And we act on them easily. It's natural. Okay, so that's what character is. And it's important to emphasize that, because character is not what you do. What you do, which is tell the truth or not tell the truth, be generous or not be generous, be faithful or not be faithful, be brave or not be brave, you can go down the list. Those are aspects of character. But they're not khuluq itself. The khuluq itself, the character itself, is a disposition in here that you don't see, that makes it easy to do certain things and hard to do others, whether they're good or bad. Okay? So, character must not be confused with what it does. Those are two different things. A person's actions may be generous, but he may have the character of a miser. Right? He just may be a good businessman. That, hey, I'm going to give you all the money you need. Why? Because I'm going to use you. I'm going to get a lot out of you. You can go to the Bedouins, and you've got Bedouins around you, and you probably know them, and they're usually incredibly generous people. At least the ones I know. And they'll sacrifice a sheep for you, maybe a camel. And usually they do that with great generosity. But I know some Bedouins who, they're not here, they're someplace else. They will sacrifice a sheep for you, but they expect from you 2 sheep. Right? You may not know these people, but I have some dealings with them. They're not the most generous Bedouins in the world. They will sacrifice for your sheep, but they actually expect to get 2 from you, or the price of 2 before they leave. So that's not actually generosity. That's not actually good khuluq, but it looks that way on the outside. So people's actions may appear generous, but they may not be. And people's actions may appear not generous, but they may be generous. Like the person that doesn't give you a penny because he doesn't have one. Okay, so character is something else. And again, in your watching of your heart, what do you incline to? What do you not incline to? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do? That's your character, you see? It sorts it out immediately. And therefore, you know, I can change my character. This is one of the most important things. So, what is good character? Let's go on. I'm going to try to finish everything in 30 minutes. Give me a break. Okay. Okay, one of the most important things is that, okay, we want, of course, to get good character. And some of us have a big job, like me. And some of us have an easy job, like you. You already have good character. Of course you do. And, but this is a big task, getting good character. Now, what is good character? First of all, the essential aspects of good character are 2 things. Humility, tawadu, and al-itharu ala-nafs, preferring others over yourself. If you've got that, you've got it down. Humility, thinking that you are below other people, not above them, looking up to other people. You know, all because you look up, because they're way up there, you're way down here. That's humility, and it is priceless. and it is honest. Who are we to look down on anyone? You know, you're wonderful. You have so much good, but God gave it to you. So you don't have any right to be proud or to look down on others. So we want to have tawada. وَمَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever is humble and puts himself or herself down below other people for the sake of God, God will raise them up. And al-ithar, preferring others over yourself. Honestly, preferring others over yourself, so that you want to help them. You want to pay back the debt. You want to give them their right. You want to see that they get justice. You want to give them even more than that. That's ithar. And those two, all good character, whether it's honesty, truthfulness, trustworthiness, chastity, faithfulness, courage, you know, haya, which is hard to translate, shame, but it's actually more than that. Huh? Haya is not khajal. Modesty, this is modesty. But haya also is the intent to do it right, and the feeling that you're not doing it right. Ala tastahi. How could you do this? It demands more than that. All of these come out of tawadu' and an ithar. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. This is what God says about the Ansar. They prefer others over themselves, even if they have desperate need. They prefer others. So you know they are courageous, they are truthful, they are generous, you name it, because they have tawadu and they have ithar. Character is difficult to change. Okay? It's like your tabi'ah. It's your nature. It's not easy to change. And that's good and that's bad. Because it can be changed. And when it is changed, it is solid. Okay? So character is not easy to change, but if you can do that, it will stay that way. It will stay that way. And character is receptive to positive and negative change. Character can always be made better. Character can always be made worse. You make it better by discipline. And basically making yourself do what is so difficult to do. Making yourself do what is so hard for you. I was a person who could not smile if I'm not happy. I'm sorry. And I used to look at politicians, men and women, and say, how can they do it? You hate this person, and you're smiling as if he was your best friend. I wasn't able to do that. And when I frowned, oh my God. And that's why if I don't like it, you can tell. You can read me like a book. And I remember one of the sheikhs I was with one day, and we were going to a beautiful place, and he said, would you smile? I said, I can't. And he said, would you smile? I said, I'm not happy. He said, would you smile? I said, I can't. He said, it's a sunnah. I said, oh. And then he said also, he said, maybe good fortune is looking for you, and with that frown, it's not going to come. You're going to scare it away. They said, would you smile? And the Russians have a statement that when the wolf shows his teeth, he's not smiling. So I said, I'll do a wolf smile. I'll show you my teeth. But then I learned that, hey, you can do it. I had to work on it a long time. If I'm happy, I'll smile. Smiles all over the place. But if I'm not happy, it was impossible for me. And then this person said, would you just do it? And it was hard. But then I That was a long time ago, by the way. But then it becomes natural, and it's not a lie. In the beginning, it is. I'm not happy. I'm not smiling. But then after a while, it becomes a smile. So this is a takhalluq bil-khuluq alladhi turid. You have to pretend to have the attribute you want. So maybe you don't have sabr, but tasabbar. So act like you have patience, right? Tasabbur, as-sabr bit-tasabbur. We learn to have patience by pretending we have patience. We learn to have generosity by pretending to be generosity. I'm going to give this money in charity. Oh, it hurts so much. Okay, but tomorrow it will hurt less. And next year it will hurt less. And after a while, you've got to be generous. And then, of course, you also want to keep, the company of generous people. Animals can be trained, and so can you. You are the best of all animals. You're the angelic animal. You're the one who can do everything. We train falcons, we train dogs, we train horses, and we can train ourselves also. And just like animals, some animals are receptive to training, like a good dog, or like certain falcons, or like a good horse. And so also some people are very receptive to training. They don't need much. And we say this is because they have istidad. They have, but I'd like to say preparedness for that. Not like preparation is not that they're prepared, but like they have a natural nature that's got in it istidad. So you were made to be generous, you're going to be that way. Maybe you were made to smile, you're going to smile someday. Okay, you have an istidad for that. And for some people it goes easier than others. Some people are difficult to train, just like some animals. And that's because they have an istidad, which is different. It's not easy, but that can happen too. It's just that you have to work on it. There's a great saint in Morocco who was among the Berbers. The Berbers, I love Berbers, but these Berbers were really hard-headed. And so one of the Mashayikh, he said to this man, could you get the Berbers of this village to pray? And he said, I'll work on it. He worked and worked and worked. And then he told the man, come to the mosque and see for yourself. And they're all lined up praying. And then the Shaykh said, they've got their boots on. He said, I got them to pray, you get them to take off their boots. So that, but some people are easier than others. But the ones who are difficult, when they change, they're changed. Again, all people can improve their character, all people can worsen their character, even the best. The people with the best character, natural character, that can be ruined. Are we coming from tougher time? 15 minutes. So here we have I think this is okay. So I think I'm going to end here pretty soon, maybe even early. Let's talk about the falcon and the falcon. The falcon, the baz, the sakha, and the falcon. And this is one of the great metaphors of our tradition, the falcon, al-baz. So how do you train the falcon? And again, it's a metaphor for me too. The falcon is created to fly. He or she is one of the best flyers in the world. They're created to, they're min al-kawasir. When a falcon attacks a dove, it breaks its back in flight. In fact, the dove doesn't feel pain because it's finished. And the way they do that's amazing. They go so fast, and then they speed up, and they hit, and it's all over. You've maybe seen that. I've seen that. you know. So the falcon is this incredible flyer. It's a very intelligent bird. It's an incredible hunter. How are you going to train it? And the way that we did this historically was you take the falcon and you put it in a dark room. It might be a dark house. And there it can't fly. There it can, no, they don't do that yet. You put it there it can't fly because it's dark. It has to see to fly. And since it can't fly, it walks on the ground. That's not what falcons are supposed to do. So you deprive it of flight. You deprive it of sight. And then you treat it really well. So the falconer then comes in, and the falcon gets to know his name and gets to hear his voice and know his voice. And the falcon falls in love with him like a baby with its mother, because he speaks to it nicely, he treats it beautifully, he will give it food, meat to eat. And so this falcon has a very low self-esteem, because like, I'm not a falcon anymore. I can't fly, I can't hunt, I can't live. This person, whom I can't see, but I hear his voice, and he's so nice, and he's giving me food, and he's treating me well. And they do that until the falcon forgets that he could ever fly. And they call that in our tradition infiltrement, the weaning. So you wean the falcon from his knowledge even that he could fly. He doesn't even know. He's forgotten, and he becomes totally dependent on the master, the falconer. Okay, and when that happens, then you begin to take the falcon outside into the light. This is when they put the hood on, because you can't show him or her the full light, because his eyes can't bear it. So just you take off a little bit, put it on. You take him out not in the middle of the day, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. And then after a while, he can see it again. And then you can put it back on, so I can't see anymore. And then you train him to fly again. So he'll fly just a little distance. Come here, come, okay. And you give him some meat. And they train him. And then after a while, you know, the falcon can fly like he did before. But he will obey the voice of the falconer. And this is a beautiful metaphor for disciplining the self. Maybe you have to deprive it. You've got to take away from it what it had. You have to reduce it and then build it back up. But build it back up correctly and to obey you and to obey your intellect, your aql. The falconer is like the intellect. The falconer is like the sheikh also. The sheikhs do this with their murids. If they're murabbis, they will also train them like falcons. Not in every case, but in some cases they do that. And so for the falcon, the falconer gave him his life. And not just gave it back, because he forgot he even had one. And the falconer then becomes dependent on him. Again, like a baby, nursing on its mother. And the falcon comes to love the falconer. And this is one of the great things about falcons, that they are one of those animals that truly love. Horses are that way. Dogs are that way. Elephants are that way. Not African elephants. Indian. You can't train an African elephant. You train Indian elephants. And they are among the most loyal of all animals. They are more loyal than dogs. And they love you. They attach to you. Amazingly. That's why when Mahmud, the elephant, is told to go to the Kaaba and he doesn't, you know, that's a miracle, because the elephants don't disobey. But he does. He said, let me go this way, that way, I'll do it, but not towards the house of God to destroy it, under Abraham, you know, this Ethiopian. So the falcon comes to love the falconer and to attach to the falconer's voice and to obey it immediately when he hears it. And this, to my limited knowledge, is what we call the baz. Because to my limited knowledge, the baz, or the bazi, is the trained falcon. Now you have Hayyul Bayazin, we call it Al-Baythin, which is, the falcon, the quarter of the falconers. It's a nice name. The people who make the sucker baz. They make the sucker able to hunt. So we skipped some things. I probably skipped some things that were necessary for that. But where I want to end now is one of the greatest poems I know. And, maybe we can talk about it a little bit. It's not very long. But this is William Butler Yeats. What's the poem? The Second Coming. 1919. Right after World War I. And he says, turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falcon. And this is incredible. And he knows what falcons are. But see, the falcon, he's talking about modern times, everything's falling apart. Everything's turning upside down. So widening and turning and turning in the widening gyre means the falcon's getting further and further away. It is a falcon, but he's going too far. Okay? The falcon cannot hear the falconer, so he's not going to come back. He's not going to be able to do what a falcon does. It's an incredible image. Things fall apart, just like that. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. We've got to have a center. You've got to have limits. You've got to have principles, but the center cannot hold. Yeats is telling us about the destruction of Western civilization. This is the end of World War I, and he's saying World War II is coming too. And what hell is being unleashed? He saw that, and many other great men and women saw that. So he says things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Fawda. Mere anarchy is turned loose upon the world, is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide, the tide that is dimmed or that is dyed with blood. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed. The tide now is filled with blood. The water is filled with blood of innocent people. And everywhere, the ceremony of innocence is drowned. And again, not innocence, the ceremony of it, the pretended innocence. It's all drowned. There's none of that left anymore either. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. We're in trouble. And he's talking about our time. If you're not the best, who is? But the best lack all conviction. We cannot get our people to do anything. They won't read books. They won't do things. We don't keep our promises. We don't really care. The best lack all conviction. The worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Something's happening. Some revelation is being fulfilled. Ashraf as-Sa'ah. That's what he's talking about. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image of Spiritus Mundi, the spirit of the world, troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, this the beast, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. They hate it. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. This is one of the great poems of the 20th century. And, you know, God protect us, God give us good character, God enable us to be the good people who are filled with passion and intensity for good, and, you know, who are not lacking in conviction. Again, when your heart is alive, you're interested in things. When your heart is alive, you want to do things. And when we don't want to do things, then we don't care. And of course, in the 20th century, this was well known. Ennui. You know, just tired of life. The French talk about it. Camus talks about it. The others. The best lack all conviction. And we must not be like that. We've got to get this heart right. And when we do that, we will have interest, we will have passion, we will have conviction, we will do the things that we have to do, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and perhaps we can again be, as we were for over 1,000 years, the best of people to all people. Let's end with that, and thank you very much for everything, and let's see if we can do some questions. Okay. Thank you. So, who's going to take charge of the questions? Are you going to do that?
We have a question online. You can ask it.
Okay.
We asked about psychological drugs, how they affect the nafs, and how is psychological illness regarded in Sharia in terms of laysa ala al-marid.
What was the first part?
Do drugs, psychological drugs, do they affect the nafs?
Drugs. Well, that's beyond my pay scale. I don't know psychiatry or psychology. So what I'm saying is just opinion, you know, and it's worth what it's worth. In my very limited knowledge and very limited experience, sometimes psychological drugs are necessary. People may be suicidal, on the brink of suicide. People may be in states of mania, depression, that they cannot deal with. In my opinion, and I hope I don't offend anyone educated in medicine, modern allopathic medicine, did I say it right? Allopathic, that's what you're studying in the university. You know, is a great accomplishment. It does amazing things. It saves lives every day, especially in the emergency room. Its cures and its medicines tend to be very powerful. And they can jolt you back into life. And they can save you at the brink of death or destruction. And they can bring you out of the depression. They can bring you out of the suicidal tendencies. They can do other good. Often, though, they just treat symptoms. They don't solve the problems. And often, they are toxic. So this particular thing may be good for you. And I know people that have been given good medications that actually brought them back into balance. But how long can you live on this? Because it is toxic. It will destroy your liver, for example, in this particular case. So like, wow, like, you know, you're doing great, but what happens when you can't take this anymore? Even in the case of this particular person, they had to take more of it because it stopped working with the effectiveness that it had initially. So these are big problems in my mind. And again, I'm not qualified to speak on this. But I would like to say that, you know, it's very good, you know, to find another remedy after that. And I believe in certain traditional medicines that you may or may not believe in. My own experience with them is that they can be amazingly effective. And I and my family have had really good results. And that type of medicine might have cost us like $7. Like it's not going to make the doctor wealthy. This is also part of it. Like in my country, the pharmaceutical industry basically controls the doctors and the legal industry as well. So they actually have to prescribe certain things or be sued. They actually, so these are where the two come together. And I know many physicians that are very unhappy with that situation. They can't be creative. They'll be sued. So I think sometimes we have to use these things. And I know for a fact that sometimes we do. But I would say that let's try to get off of them if we can. We have wonderful physicians, men and women who come to the Gambia every year for a time, and they help the people, mashallah. And they actually use allopathic medicine, which is the one that we study in the universities. Plus, they use other types of medicine, traditional. And usually I've seen them use allopathic medicine to save a desperate case. Like a woman, for example, has extreme iron deficiency. So they will intervene, and she'll be okay. But then after that, they will find another way to balance her out. So they will remove her from this really powerful jolt to something that she can live with forever. And their results are very good. What was the second part?
Is the Marid person responsible?
So I think that what they were saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that in the case of insanity, well, in the case of insanity, we don't bear any moral answerability. And God protect us all from that. Insanity is a disaster. It's so sad, it's so horrible. When we lose this heart, and we lose this mind, and people like that are not responsible before God, because this is not working anymore. And, taklif, moral responsibility before God, it requires that you have sanity. And God protect us. God protect us from that. Insanity is dark. Insanity is sad. It is impossible to bear. One of our great teachers in America, Dr. Abdul Hakim Jackson, he always says, don't go too hard. Don't be too rough on yourself, because if you break a rule, you can always make it up by Tawbah. If you break your psyche, there's no Tawbah from that. If you break the psyche, this happens to men and women. They get pushed too far. And I'm talking about in the name of religion. They get pushed too far. And then break. Snap. And, I've seen 4 sisters like this who, this is actually the case I'm thinking about was over 40 years ago. But she was so sincere. And she tried so hard in a very difficult situation in Chicago. And her husband, was kind of like that too. It's like they made it too hard. They made it too difficult. She wanted to do everything. And in the end, she snapped. And then you have to pull her out from in front of buses. She would just walk out in the street, not looking, in a daze. She lost her mind. And, again, she would walk in front of buses as tawakkul. Like God will protect me, and it got worse and worse and worse. So, don't let the psyche snap. Don't let the psyche snap. Let's take another question. Online?
I have
Okay.
Okay, what is the secret that before in long time ago, there used to be knowledge, building the pyramids, in Cairo, and there used to be knowledge nowadays it's not yet revealed. like how they built the pyramids, or like the story of, I don't know if everybody they know about it, the story of Sayyidina Sulaiman, when Queen Saba, when she came to him, and he asked the genie or the person who would bring the chair of her before, and the human, he was able to do that. So like also from there, I realized that there is knowledge like nowadays it's not yet revealed or people know about. So what is the secret of that?
That's a really good question. Very thoughtful question.
And also plus, I think that awliya, are they related to this? Like awliya know about this knowledge nowadays, and what is the reason that like they are not covered? And anybody could be from the awliya, or is it like they're there and we don't know about them and we shouldn't ask about
so that's a really
and the Mukashafat. I was like, it's also something I didn't understand.
so,
علم المكاشفة.
علم المكاشفة. Okay, so that's
Other questions.
5 questions. So you have to help me get through that. First of all, traditional peoples have amazing knowledge, and our wonderful sister, I forgot your name. Maria. Okay. She mentioned the pyramids, and actually we could talk about all kinds of things. You could talk about the Eskimos, we call the Inuit, and the things they knew about ice, and the things they knew about snow, and the things they knew about animals, and the incredible technologies, and beautiful technologies they were able to create. There were some Western Europeans, I don't know the story very well, who, like many Europeans, didn't believe in anything but the reductionist world. And they went to the Amazon jungle in Brazil. And they lived among certain native peoples. And they changed their minds. They discovered that these people know all kinds of things that they didn't know anything about. And in fact, now there's a general belief that before the Europeans came to the Americas, that the First Nations there were managing the forests, even the Amazon forest. And there are now studies that want to show that the Amazon forests were made to grow in the way they grow. And they have really strong evidence for that. And I remember in this story that one of these persons, in the end, it's like even, animals began to speak to him. He even began to see things right there, before him that were unbelievable. And so he just said, okay, I was completely wrong. Let's start all over again. So traditional peoples have a lot of knowledge. And, you are an heir of the prophets, because all this knowledge comes from the prophets. And it comes from the saints that pick up from the prophets. The Chinese, the Indians, the Africans, like the Mandinka, they have incredible storehouses of knowledge. And it's very important for us to respect that. And one of the greatest disabilities is to be arrogant about the little that you know. And this is characteristic of many people in Western civilization. They think they know it all, and if they don't know it, it's not worth knowing. And we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be like that. Ibn Ata'Allah, who is one of our greatest scholars, one of our greatest saints, he says in his munajat, his discourses with God, his conversations with God, Ilahi ana jahilun fi ilmi. Admitting the truth, God, and I am ignorant in my knowledge. He has vast knowledge, but he knows that what I don't know of what I know is the vast part of it. أنا جاهل في علمي فكيف لا أكون جهولا في جهلي. So how could I not be infinitely ignorant in my ignorance? This is the way we should all be. And therefore, show respect for people. show respect for cultures. And maybe we can learn these things again. Now, in the case of things like ancient Egypt, you actually have certain things like the Hermetic tradition, which you may or may not know about, which has a lot in Greek that was written down by the Macedonians when they ruled in Egypt, Cleopatra, the Ptolemies. And that's a rich source. And we have other rich sources as well. So God says, وَأَمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. As for that benefits people, it will remain in the earth forever. But who will find it? Who will find it? Because God hides these things away. And in 1945, in Palestine, in what at that time may have actually been Jordan, I don't remember, but in Wadi Qumran, which may have been Jordan, I don't know, was it Jordan? But in Wadi Qumran, there was a shepherd named Muhammad Adib, and he was herding his sheep, and one of the sheep strayed, and he threw a rock at it to throw a rock in front of it, and there was an open cave, and the rock went in the cave, and they heard something break. And so he and his friend got the sheep home, and then another day they brought ropes, and they decided to go in the cave and see what was there. That was the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are the greatest archaeological discovery ever, certainly in the 20th century and the 19th century. And these became 14 caves filled with documents from the children of Israel from before the time of Jesus. And they are amazing. And in fact, they were put under lock and key for 50 years. Scholars were not allowed to look at them until certain other scholars had gone through them, probably to edit them. The Dead Sea Scroll community, for example, believed that Christ would be coming soon. About 70 years, they weren't off. And then they believed that after Christ would come the super prophet, who is the Deuteronomy prophet, 18:18, who will be like Moses, and he will not speak of himself, but whatever God says. And they will have to obey him. And he is from the midst, he is from around their brothers. That's what the Hebrew says, actually. It says, Mikeleb, which means min qurb. He will be from around their brothers. And this is our prophet. And they had descriptions of him, none of which has reached us intact, by the way. All torn up, all pieces. It's like, were they that way when you found them? And that is a major find. Well, why did I mention that? Because that is something incredible that was hidden in the earth and was brought forth in this time. And it tells us about other treasuries like that, even in your country of Lebanon, and Mount Horeb, for example. So they're there, and they will be opened before the end of time. They will be discovered before the end of time. So there's much hidden in the earth. And people protect their traditions the best they can. We must be people who can receive traditions with respect and not be predatory, not try to destroy them. If you do that and you show your trustworthiness, you can pretty much expect that God will open to you doors that no one imagines today. We can get it back. And I don't remember exactly what you asked about the awliya.
Yeah, the awliya, they had this knowledge that could be maybe related to knowledge that was before, we don't know about, and how could we approach them, and what are the rules that they become awliya?
So that's also above my case.
I don't know anything about it.
But,
another course.
I believe, and I'm not the only one, that the awliya have everything. And I've been told that. I've been told that by people that I trust absolutely. They keep everything. But again, they keep it secret until it is proper to show it again. And not in a world like this, they won't do that. Here it will be misused. Here it will be used for the wrong ends.
People might execute them, yeah.
They might use them improperly. You know, I remember that I had some books in Spain that I wanted to get to Jeddah, and they were all forbidden. You know, they were about Islam, but in a different way. And so one of the great sheikhs, he gave me something. He said, they'll never see it. But he said, don't you give this to anybody, because they could use it for very bad ends. And in fact, I mean, I did that. I decided this. I remember that when I went through Spanish customs, they opened the box and they shut it like this, like there was a snake in there. They didn't even open it. He opened it, he shut it like that. And said, just go. And when I got to Jeddah, they didn't even open it. And, you know, so they have lots of secrets, but they keep them. قلوب الأحرار قبور قلوب الأحرار قبور الأسرار. The hearts of the free men and free women. For what? They are the graves of secrets. And most of those people are hidden. The vast majority are hidden. That one or two will appear here and there. And one or two will have the keys. And I believe they have the keys to everything. And, you know, I could tell you things that if I told you, you'd think I was insane. Maybe you wouldn't, but maybe some of us would, especially, I don't know who's online watching, you know, but, and, you know, there are amazing things in the world out there. And there's also metaphysical secrets. So God make us worthy to receive. God enable us to receive. And Islam is a blessing, the real Islam. The Islam that made Lebanon, that made Syria, you know, that made Iraq. It's a great blessing. And I believe, and I actually believe this for years, you know, that if in my country we got the real thing, the buffalo would be back, the antelopes would be back, the rivers would be pure again, and the First Nations would live. That's what I believe, because we can give them an umbrella under which they can live. And then also our African people. They're diamonds. And they will play a major role in that, but it will not be played. They are absolutely essential. Why did they go through this hell of 500 years, being wrenched out of their mother's arms and sent as slaves to a white supremacist society? Okay? That's coal that turns now into diamonds. Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, W.D. Muhammad, we could name Imam Zayd and Brother Siraj Wahaj and others and others and others. Ibn Hajj Muhammad, we could name others. You know, so, you know, we have got a lot. And, you know, may we be able to get our act together. Was there another question? Okay. You've got your hand up right away. I didn't look over here. I don't know if Bassem has something to say or add. Let's take your question. We'll come to you.
Yesterday you were talking about entertainment and how the TV made us perceive knowledge as fun, whereas it is painful and out of extremely gaining certain pleasure. And in the era of internet now, we have lack of Arabic content online, and this has caused sort of distance between us and our own language and our own identity. So there is a gap that needs to be filled. And we also talked about propaganda and how we should use all media in order to fill this gap. So my answer is, how can we fill that gap while planting this idea that knowledge recommends hard work and it's not easy?
You know, maybe my answer is not the best answer to that. And this is something we should talk about. And some of you are in communication, you're in planning, you know things about this I wouldn't even dream of. As you said, we have to use every form of communication and media. We can have no hope of communicating if we don't do that. And we have to do it in the very best way that we can do it. And I lost my train of thought. Could you repeat some of what you said?
There's this connotation that knowledge is fun, whereas
Yeah,
it's not.
okay, I think that's good. So the thing is, we don't want to teach them that knowledge is not fun, because you won't get any takers. You've got to be like the Pied Piper. You know, play the beautiful song and the children will follow you. If you don't play the beautiful song, they won't follow you. So, you know, this is why one of the things we have to do is beautiful 3-minute or less presentations on YouTube and Facebook and other things that catch them, that catch their interest. And we don't tell them anything about this is not going to be entertaining. No, it's going to be very entertaining. It's going to entertain you to death, right? And then little by little. And the metaphor that I like here is from your forefathers and mothers and the caravan. So the caravan's crossing the Syrian desert. Very, very difficult. The caravan is crossing any desert. Okay, now one of the things you've got to have on the caravan is medicine. And then you've got to know how to treat a person dying of thirst. And maybe as the caravan goes, it discovers a man or a woman who for some reason got lost or left alone, and they're dying of dehydration. Maybe they haven't drunk anything for 5 days. And you know, they're about to die. They're delusory. And so one of the things that we would do is that we kept in our caravans a box locked under lock and key of a very special medicine. Sugar. Sugar. And this would be sukkar nabati. This would be plant sugar. And it would be crystals. And so that person, you give them a drop of water. They'll go crazy and give them the sugar. See, and then they suck on the sugar. And you have to hold them down. You know, but give them another drop and sugar. And the sugar is, of course, giving them glucose. It's getting energy. It's sweet. It's delicious. It's almost like food. They haven't eaten for days either. Okay, and you have to do it that way, because if you give them the water they want to drink, they will die. The shock will be so great to their nervous system that they will die. And this is why it's very painful. You get that person who's dying of thirst, and you've got to hold him or her down and give them drops. And again, we would do that with sugar. And usually we can save them. So this is, I think, a good metaphor for us today. That these young people, and maybe they're older people as well, they're like people who are dying of thirst. They cannot take more than 3 minutes. They cannot take the pain. They cannot study. Their attention span is extremely short. You know, so we have to give them sugar and drops of water, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and give them thoughts, give them ideas, give them concepts. Another thing, the world you live in today is not a world of ideologies. The world of ideologies was the world of the 20th century. Fascism, Marxism, you know, socialism, Erich Fromm, you know, Liebknecht, Rosa Luxemburg, Karl Marx, Engels, Lenin, Mao Zedong, the fascists, and so forth. Ideas, ideologies. It's banks. It is images, you know, movies, YouTube, Facebook, advertisements. You know, maybe we call that movies, moving pictures, media, okay, and technology. A technology that is omnipresent and that no human being is in charge of. You know, technology is on the march, and it is a robot. It is an autonomous. It's going. We talked about that, no need to talk about it again. We have only a minute. But even those of us who are working in technology, like many of you and many of our brothers and sisters elsewhere, you know, I know a brother who's brilliant, and he's got to work on the iPhone of the next 10 years. He's good at it. But he's got to know where is this technology going, if he can, to get there first, because the others are going to get there too. And if they don't do it, they're out of business. And I wrote my dissertation on a typewriter Most of you never seen one, right? Typewriters, if you had invested in that, tough luck. It's out. You could sell it as an antique, right? But you've got to know where the technology is going, and they're not going to ask, is this good or bad? But is it efficient? Will it sell? Okay, so that's the world you live in today. The monoculture, the monorail culture, which is actually no culture. Social media, which is antisocial. What are we going to do about that? You can do something about that. But we have to work together. We've got to know what we're doing. We've got to know what we're doing. And inshallah, may we do that. We've got to communicate. We've got to get Arabic out there. Beauty is the splendor of truth. That's our weapon. Beauty. Artistic creation. Beautiful, beautiful presentations. And you're the people to do that. We're all the people to work together on that. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Yes.
I have 11 questions. I will ask just one.
I love the number 11.
I will try. There were actually 12. You answered my.
Oh,
The first one is the first question. Okay, so the first one is the most important is I have been always interested in finding a teacher / mentor, and I've always asked about that, but no one had the exact answer. So you talked
ask
about
me.
yeah, exactly. So
Ask me.
you talked about
I'm very selfish and very egotistical in that regard.
when you talked about confusion that comes from lack of understanding of the truth. So if I'm looking for a teacher, what are the criteria that I'm going to look for? And is this teacher will be someone who's in religion or someone who's in my domain of
Yeah. That's a really good question. Talking about teachers and mentors and getting one, who should that be? So, does it have to be in religion? Can it be in other things? And, we have to have mentors. We have to have teachers. And those of us who have accomplished things in life, you've had mentors your whole life. You had one in your mother. You had one in your father. You had one in your grandfather, your grandmother. Then you found other mentors. And, again, God bless my father. I remember sometimes he would find me mentors. We had this wonderful man, and we were at the University of Georgia, Athens, Georgia. There was this wonderful man, an older man. And my father made sure that I and another friend of mine learned to know him and to go to his house. I had a mentor across the street and a chemistry professor, a mentor across the street in mathematics. They're all good people. They're all really good people. So you want to make sure they're good and they're sincere. And that they're good and sincere in what they're going to do. And in the spiritual path, you need a mentor. And there you've got to be careful, because it is your responsibility to find the one who can be trusted and who is what he or she claims to be. And usually they don't make claims. And to make a mistake there is a very terrible mistake. It's traumatic. Would that be enough? Okay, and how many more questions remain? How many more minutes remain? 2 minutes. Okay. Huh? Can I ask this? And this is, I don't know if I should let Yusuf ask a question. Are you going to ask a 2-minute question? Or one that takes a whole lecture to answer? Ask your question.
Okay, so you said before that people, those in Syria,
But you have to raise your voice.
yeah, people who are like killing and destroying using modern weapons, I don't want to talk about. They don't know that that's in our job. That's what we said before. Earlier. So like sometimes like when for example on Facebook, I see these arguments between people like pro Islam and against Islam. But I guess I'm never asking a question like why doesn't God show them that He's in control or in this context? And the others like they all just go quiet or start talking nonsense.
They start talking.
Nonsense.
They talk things which are no longer related, not in context. So from what you said, what is like the right answer? Like, why should we show them that He's in control? I think because they don't know, so why don't you show them this?
It's a very good question. And it's about, what I said, that we need to know that creation is in good hands. Okay? And like, even if the situation is miserable and impossible, you've got to be able to know that it's in God's hands. What does Ibn Ata'Allah say that? What does he say that? There's no one more ignorant, yani, I don't remember how it goes, but لا يزيد من الجهل شيئا. How does it go? من أراد أن يظهر في الوقت غير ما أراده الله. That this is not the way it's. I got the text wrong, but the meaning. There is no bigger fool, no more ignorant person than the one who wants to make appear in this time something God did not will. Okay? Like an Islamic State. That's not going to be. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen now. It might happen further down the road, maybe. But it's not going to happen now. Look at the time. Read the time. The first rung of the ladder that was taken away was the political. And the last rung of the ladder will be salat. So, why don't you begin with the rung that's there and try to get that restored? So, these people usually are highly frustrated, very ignorant. And, they take radical decisions that just make it worse. Now, what is the answer to that? There must be 1,000 answers. But we have 1 minute, probably, or less. I would say this. In the history of Islam, we had futuwa societies for young men and young women, for the feta and the fatah, the noble youth, the noble young woman, to engage them in positive things. The Boy Scout movement comes actually out of that. Do a good turn daily. Be prepared. That's all futuwa. And our futuwa organizations in Baghdad, in Damascus, all over in Grenada, they did incredible things. And they did things like military training, archery, horseback riding. If the enemy came, these fitya, they could do incredible things. And they were helping people, helping the poor, helping women, helping old ladies. Okay, young people have energy. Men and women, boys and girls, young men, young women. You've got to engage them. And it can't just be in a halaqah. Yes, there should be halaqahs, but they've got to do things. So that's what I think we have to do. And you may have heard me say in one of the early lessons that we have a brother in Jakarta, Sensei Muhammad Hakim. He is an Aikido master. You show me anyone on the earth who's greater than him. He is a master. And his wife is too. Both of them descendants of the great saints of Java. And one of the things he did on his own is he would go into the mosques of Jakarta that support ISIS and that want to go there. And he went there courageously. He goes there to rehabilitate them on his own. Nobody pays him for that. And they don't trust him. They're suspicious of him. But then he is a master of martial arts. And then after a while, he begins to teach them. Some of them leave him and go away. They say, no, you're just a Sufi. He is. But he will teach you the arts of Aikido. And in Aikido, which to me is the best martial art I know anything about, even greater than Tai Chi, even greater than Kung Fu. In Aikido, no one can beat you. No one. And but Aikido is based on spirituality and love. We said our path is service and love. Who do you hate? I hope I don't hate anybody. I wish I don't have an enemy on earth. There's no one I want to destroy. So you have to have that attitude, and you can beat them every time. The smile is powerful. The frown is weak. You become strong when you can smile. And when we were in Kuala Lumpur just a short time ago, what this man will do, he will take people who've been in ISIS, people who want to go to ISIS, And he said, you can't talk to them because they're like gang members. You can't talk to a gang member. You either agree with them or you disagree. If you disagree, you're the enemy. If you agree, well, why don't you join the gang? That's the way they are. So you can't talk to them. But what he would show them is, okay, now I'm going to hold you. Break away. They can't do it. And now he teaches them, okay, I want you to do something else. Think about God. Think about the takbir of tahajjud. Think about this or other. Get hatred out of your heart. They pull away and they start crying. I did that with him myself. I did that with him myself. You know, and he did that in a university. We went to the Minister of Education, Higher Education, who himself is trained in martial arts. Many Eastern people are. And he said, bring him to me. And we had a big demonstration of Aikido at the biggest university in Malaysia. Lots of students, girls and boys, young men and women. And he brought people from the audience. He said, okay, you do it. And they were laughing. It's like amazing. And then he puts on a demonstration. And like they use swords, you know, but their sword is the sword of love, the sword of life. Because you have the sword of death and you have the sword of life. The sword of life, you'll put it at their throat every time. But then whether you use it or not, that's their decision. You know? So he would be attacked by 5 swordsmen. And wow, he's got them all. They would hold him down. I mean, these are martial artists who know how to do that. And he breaks away in 1 minute or 2 minutes. Just like that. So he used that to rehabilitate them. And actually my idea is his idea. He said, we've got to have futuwa. Aikido. And also if you ever study martial arts, you know, you have to take an oath that you will never use this to harm people. And you could look at the movie Ip Man, which is about a true martial artist, you know, and I like that movie, you know, Ip Man, but he is noble. And his art form is that of a woman. And so no one can beat him. No one can beat him. These are very valuable things. And there are many things to do, but we've got to engage our youth. We've got to engage them. And I would say futuwa for young men and women, this is really important. And then we begin to do good. Then we begin to take care of the poor. You know, we were saying before, you have the great Imam al-Awza'i here. I hope all of you know how great this man was. And this is, I've been there now 3 times. This is one of the poorest areas I've ever seen in this beautiful city. We could make that different. We could have permaculture. We could bring it back to life. We could help them. We could lift them up. You know, and this would be an act of futuwa. It's an act of muru'ah. It's an act of good. May God enable us to do that. Unfortunately, this is the end. You know, and I'm so happy to be here, and so happy to be with you, and I'm kind of happy with the lessons. I hope you are. That's what counts, but it's all because of you. You know, teachers can't teach without students who want to be taught. You know, and that's the way you are. You want to learn. So then that makes it easy for us to teach. May we work together, and may you all have long lives, including me, and long and good health. And may we do the right things at the right time. May we learn adabul awqat, you know, the special courtesies of the times. And, you know, again, you know, when you don't have metaphysical truth, which every religion has got to have, and we have it, but we don't teach it, you will not be able to keep your best. You know, if you cannot keep your most intelligent, you have lost. And this is our problem today. We cannot keep the most gifted. They're checking out. They don't want anything to do with this religion. And that's because we don't have answers to anything, and everything we do is a disaster. And we look like we're the worst people on the face of the earth. That's got to change. And when we do our religion right, it will change. And we've got to be able to give them the truth, answer their questions. And then when they enlist, they will build the palace. The greatness of Islamic civilization was because we were able to keep our best minds. We were able to keep our most gifted people. And when you don't do that, you lose them. They'll go become a Buddhist. He'll become a yogi. He'll become an atheist or an agnostic or just a humanist or like, I just don't want to do anything you do. Okay, and then you'll have other people who stay on board. But they will become externalists because they don't understand anything. So they'll just hold to the letter of the law. And they don't understand anything about the world they live in. So they actually are potentially dangerous. I don't mean to slander anybody, but they are capable of violence because they now live in a world they don't understand anything about, and they are aliens in that world. And easily they become at war with that world. So they begin to try to destroy it, but they only destroy us and themselves. This is horrible. And this is where we have gotten because of, I believe, betrayal of our best traditions. May we get them back بإذن الله تعالى. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه واجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى. علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعلنا نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعد تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. These have been for me beautiful days. In fact, I've never had a bad day in Lebanon. That's the truth. That's the truth. And may God bless your wonderful country and bless the Sham and bless all the world and all the world. Amen. Wassalamu alaikum.